This is the Segovia Show.
All right, now we are rolling. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Segovia Show. I'm your host, Segovia. Today, I am joined by a special guest who I believe you're a co-host or a regular host on the Critical Introverts Show. Nate, by all means, introduce yourself to the crowd that doesn't know you yet.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Andres. I know I mispronounced your name last time when we were.
No, you said it right.
I thought I said Andreas last time.
And that's still right.
Okay, cool. But yeah, my name's Nate Cap, and I'm an independent researcher and seeker of truth. And I'm a teacher of natural and moral law. And I'm just trying to help end slavery in people's minds and people's hearts, and move in the direction of freedom. And that's what my work is all about. So,
Well, that is what's a powerful intro, because just full disclosure, folks, the first time I met Nate was on the Critical Introverts Show. And that's literally the only time we ever talked, both before and after the recording session. But there were things that Nate, you said during the show, and then when we talked a little bit after, that resonated with me. So I'm like, you know what, I got to pick his brain a little bit, because I think it will serve for great conversations, especially, as you say, slaves to the mind, and what we're seeing play out before our very eyes because of what I call social media engineering, not just social engineering that is happening, and how this was quite literally like taken to the next level, or amplified, or in some way accelerated, because people were forced into their homes 2 years ago for the pandemic, and the only way for them to have a window outside their place, in some cases where you don't have a physical window, was literally a screen. And
right.
And we have seen the effects of that that have taken over our country. So before we talk about current social issues that I believe we are going to address, I have to ask, what inspired you to do what you're doing now?
Well, that's a very loaded question, but to simplify it, I had multiple awakenings where, I recognize the inconsistencies in our government. I recognize that we have been lied to about so many things, and, through media and other religious institutions, and also our public schooling institutions. And I recognized a lot of, I actually started off as a conspiracy theorist, as people would like to call me, as a derogatory name just for looking into things. And as I did that, I really just knew that there was something way off about this world and about the structure of the system that we're in. And I decided that I had to do some really deep research and try to get to the bottom of why things are the way that they are. And so then I got into some really deep, dark information that really helped open my eyes to a place where I was very naive and thought like, oh, everybody's just trying their best, and everybody's just doing what they need to be doing, and no one really needs to do anything, just vote and everything will be much better. But of course, I learned very quickly that that is definitely not the case, and that we are sovereign beings on this planet that are supposed to be free. We're supposed to be the sovereign beings that we were born to be. And once I recognized that, I started to understand that I have a moral obligation to take it, to not only take in lots of information, to assemble my grammar and understand what it is that I'm looking at, the information that I'm looking at, but then spread this type of information to the world so people have a higher chance of coming across information that can help them take back their sovereignty and become, moral, responsible beings and align to the laws of nature that will, help us live harmonious instead of living, separate in our minds and manifesting that separation outwardly to other people. And that's why, we see so much war, and that's why we see so much, aggression towards each other, because we don't understand what's going on between our ears. And that was also, part of my awakening, is finding out like, oh, there's actually something more to our human being, by understanding our brain and understanding consciousness and furthering our awareness to, what's actually taking place within us. And so, I went on my inner journey, and, I still am, and I will till the end of time. And, I just know that things are really, really out of control. And I know that starting podcasts and video casts is one of the best ways to get this information out there and really help people see what's truly happening. And, it's a lot of work. It's something that, I never really wanted. I never wanted to do what I'm doing. I just feel morally charged to do this because I know that we are all connected. I know that we are all bound, to the same principle in nature. And, we have to recognize, we have to have a collective awakening of what is truly going on to really reunite ourselves and, find peace and find, some kind of middle ground to where we can all, instead of just button heads and fighting, we can, we can find peace. Yeah, we can coexist. And I realized that, the more that I became peaceful inwardly, the more that my surroundings became peaceful. And that is, to me, very powerful to realize, because it's like what Gandhi said, be the change that you wish to see. So I became the change that I wish to see in the world, and I continue to do so. And I also see the people around me starting to awaken, some people are really, low domes, and they can't really, they don't want to hear anything that people like me have to say. But then, people, you might become isolated like I have, and people start to, it feels like people are, it feels like you're pushing people away at first, but really it's that you are just, for me, in my personal experience, it's because I just recognized that to live in right action in the world, most people are not going to align with that, and they are going to run away, and it's going to be a very tough process to get through to them. But as you become the leader that you wish, that you want to be, and lead yourself through life, then people start to gravitate towards that, and they want to be their own leader. That's the goal. The goal is to help people become their own leaders. And, I see that a little bit in my life, and I'm very thankful that I see it, because had I not, it would be a very lonely place, and I would totally be hopeless, to say the least. But it's very, very, to my awakening has just been all over the place. There's so many things I could get into that have awakened me to do what I'm doing right now. So,
No, and I do respect that, because more people in the political sphere, those that are more on the conservative or even more right leaning would say that, oh, you're getting red pilled, to those that are coming over to their side, and for those that go more aggressively left, we say they've gone woke. WOKE is not the same thing as being awakened. So now it's like a whole other thing, and I don't even know if the term woke is being used properly. Some say it's not. Not my point. All I know is what the general public now means by it, and everybody's kind of like gotten to an equilibrium on the understanding of what that even means. But there's a lot. I can poke and prod a lot of what you just said. It's very loaded. I would say very philosophical in nature, and spiritual in the direction of what you're seeking, because the connection that you're talking about that binds us all is that which we cannot see, but we know as that we're connected in some way. Now, as someone, and I was very vocal about it on the Critical Introvert Show. I am a Christian, a practicing Christian, and in that, to me, that connection is God. So we are body, soul, and spirit. That's the way He made us, because He is of that nature. He's a triune God, and we're a triune person. So, in that respect, I know what it means to search for the truth, especially when I was searching for meaning myself, not because I was lost, dazed, or confused. No, I think there's a term for it now, a natalist or something like that. People that wish they were never born. And there was an article that I read several months ago. It was the weirdest thing. It was a dude in the UK suing his parents because they didn't ask him for consent to be born. I don't know how that works. All I can tell you is that he said, "I love my parents, but now I'm born." But here's the thing: his complaint for being born was that his effects were that he was a detriment to the environment because of climate change. Now, you and I only know of what we ever exchanged about ourselves in the conversations that transpired on the Critical Introvert Show. Since then, it's only been arranging this meeting to happen,
right.
to record this. So I don't know how aligned we are in entirely on our values system, or even on, let's just call it politics. I hate calling it politics, but politics, even principles. So we might find ourselves disagreeing, or we might find ourselves that we're not that far off. But this is a bit of a disclaimer also for the listeners, because I don't know where we're going to go with all this, but it's a discussion I like having. And it doesn't matter if I agree or disagree with a person, so long as they're willing to sit down with someone like me to have a discussion. And we're both wanting for the betterment of society and for us as humans in a direction of what solutions we can provide to one another, and hopefully find a consensus, instead of what's happening now in our political sphere, where no, you're either with me or you're against me. It's like rank and file, or you're my enemy. Like, wow, it's
cult. That's called a cult.
Yeah, and 20 years ago, I told my English professor, who wasn't teaching English but turned the class into quite literal political discussion, because it was pre-war Iraq, so everybody had something to say. But instead of teaching English and literature, we were busy debating the war. Like, what does it matter what we say in this classroom? We're not Congress. But it's like, can we get back to the topic that I pay to learn? And now campuses are literally what that classroom was, a microcosm of what campuses are now. They're just indoctrination centers for leftist activism, and it's not a place where people actually discuss ideas in an open forum, as we kind of wish they would be. So, having said all that, where this will go, we both do not know. And I love the idea of touching on some of these things, because I want to poke and prod and discuss a little further some of the things that you said there in your monologue, because I think it's important for people to grasp, and also to see where it in a way it's headed. Because there's probably some things we could fine tune. You're on a journey, and so am I. And I did mention that I was on a mission to discovery myself, but I didn't want to be born, but I'm here. So to me, being born and raised in a loving family and in a Christian church, it's like, oh yeah, God created you because He had a purpose for you and all these things. That I don't know what that meant because, well, I didn't ask for any of this. And now that I'm alive, I'm being told I gotta live by a set rules and things according either to religiosity, if we look at it that way, or what the world says I gotta do. It's like, well, I don't ask to be born, but now I gotta manage my life based on how they want me to manage it. That's how I saw it, and it became annoying. So my audience knows this now more because as I've had more of these conversations of wide ranging things, I discussed on an episode that I opened up about my suicide attempts. I did attempt 5 times. I failed, obviously, because I'm still here. But that was about 20 years ago now, and it was in one of those attempts that some people will call it enlightenment, and some people believe in it, others don't. When I say that God told me to put the knife down and don't do it again, I have a purpose for you. And there was a reference that was made in that moment that spoke to only what I knew of an event that happened 7 years before that nobody knew about. So to me, I knew that it was God speaking to the heart of me. And ever since then, it was like, all right, show me the way. And that's been my journey, you could say, 20 years later. I actually delve more into the psychosis, and I guess the spiritual battle of it all through a romantic novel series that I created called The Many Misadventures of Enoch Bellagio. It's a lot easier to project my life through a fictional character. So I'm on book 3 now, which is supposed to publish this spring. People hold me accountable. So I want to finish telling that story because the 3rd book is the catharsis of the character, but also showing the highs and the lows in terms of discovery, the setbacks on a journey and things like that, because it was never easy. And it's a very lonesome journey at times. Like you said, you felt alone, like you basically were alone, but you were isolated in a journey from. And I'm a very big Batman guy. If you actually turn the camera around, everything I have around me is basically Batman. But one of my favorite trailers is a teaser trailer to the first movie, Batman Begins, that nobody remembers about, and it's the monologue by Harry Ducard, the one that takes Bruce Wayne under his wing. You see Batman Begins, I'm assuming, but there's that moment where the trailer starts off, and it's in the movie too. But he says, "You traveled the world, but now you must journey inwards, for what you truly fear is inside you." Like whatever journey he's on, it's in here. And that's when you were saying like, wow, we're talking Batman Begins now. Because that's the first thing I think about. But a lot of people on a road to self-discovery think it's a location when actually it's within. Because for those that are watching, I had a back-to-back recording session. And in the first session was when we were focused on health, we spoke heavily about mindset because it's all a mind game. And lo and behold, this conversation quite literally is just that. But we are bound by these forces that I'll call spiritual, that hold us back. And sometimes we're being held back by the man in the mirror. It's us.
Yep.
So that's my contribution to this. So I wanna ask you, because you said to a more harmonious humanity. But you also say it's for people to become their own leaders. Don't you also see it that's a little open-ended where some people would find that their leadership clashes with the leadership ideals you might have had, where their direction of being that they could say they're already on, but clashes entirely with your worldview?
Well, I just want to state that when I'm speaking about harmonious, I am talking about aligning to natural law or God's law, and that means understanding the dynamic of the human behavior and how it's governed, and that as we take a right action into the world, it is an action that does not cause harm to others, right? So that is, most people can't define what a right is, but it's that simple. It's as we go through this life in the physical realm, and we if we're trying to live harmoniously, if we're trying to live peacefully, then we have to understand that there is knowledge that we can know and understand that aligns with our moral compass, which means that once we know that a right is an action that doesn't cause harm, then that means that we can actually also feel that. Just an example would be, excuse me, if you if I ask somebody, or I'll ask you, is it a right or a wrong for a grown man to rape a little boy or girl?
Well, then my response to that would be, some cultures find it acceptable.
No, but I'm asking you in like right away, would you say that is wrong or that's right?
Oh, and I'll say that is wrong.
Obviously, yeah. So once we understand that by the science of logic, that if we are playing by the rules and we agree, okay, it's wrong that this action that this person took is wrong, then we can understand through the apophatic method that anything that is opposed or opposite of that wrong action is a right. Okay, so it becomes very simple to understand what a right is by understanding what a wrong is. And this is very important to the question that you asked, because we have to understand what a wrong is so that way we won't take part in it, and we also won't support it. And that is, it's a very simple thing. So if once we understand that these actions that go against God's law or natural law are things like, it can be simplified on 7 fingers. You have murder, you have rape, you have trespassing, you have coercion, you have assault, you have willfully lying, and you have stealing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so all of these 7 actions are wrong actions. They are disharmony with nature, because to do any of these actions is to take something from someone that doesn't belong to you, right? Mm-hmm. So as we understand this, it harmonizes with it should harmonize with our hearts, because our hearts are already inherently made with the information of a moral compass. So the moral compass, we know right away that if somebody's murdering somebody, it does something to us. It shocks us. We feel it. Somebody getting raped, we feel that. Somebody stealing, it's a bad energy. So this is just something that can be understood by understanding this simple structure. So like a right is based in truth. It's correct. Like on a math test, like if you get a wrong or right answer, it's correct. If you get a wrong answer, it's wrong. So it comes down to simple mathematics. So a right is an action that is based in truth, and it doesn't cause harm to other beings. If it's a wrong action, if it causes harm and takes away someone's sexual consent, or someone's life, or someone's place of dwelling, or any of those 7 transgressions, then it's a wrongdoing. It's causing harm. It's causing disharmony. So as we learn think about there's 2 principles. That one of them is the oldest principle, which is the self-defense principle. And then there's the other principle of the non-aggression principle. And these are principles in nature that if we understand them, we'll recognize that we're already part of them. Because obviously, if someone is trying to attack you, you're going to defend yourself. If someone's attacking you verbally, you can defend yourself. So it's built into our nature. I mean, you look at every animal on this planet, just about every animal is created to defend itself against other beings.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're the same way, because that's, it's part of understanding our R complex part of our brain is we have a survival mechanism. And then there's the non-aggression principle. And the non-aggression principle is about don't aggress upon someone else's rights. And don't do so, because it's about understanding the golden rule: do to others as you would have done to you. So, or you could look at it as like, don't do to others as you wouldn't want done to you. Mm-hmm. So it's about understanding that if we can learn this simple knowledge, because see, the thing is, people don't even, a lot of people just don't believe in that truth even exists, let alone that there's an objective difference between right and wrong. Then, if we don't understand this, it's because we're overcomplicating everything. And that's what the ego does. The ego wants to overcomplicate everything. And so it's really simple. It's very simple when we really look at it, because look at the word, for instance, natural law. Natural means inherent. It's not made or caused by man. It's built into the fabric of the cosmos. And then you look at the word law. Now, I'm talking about capital L law, because I'm talking about the one and only law, God's law, which is the law that is fixed. Okay, it can't be changed. It's not something that can be, changed by man. But see, man takes the lowercase law, and then turns it into his law. And then that's why we have all these arbitrary laws all over the world. Mm-hmm. And as we become more aware of this very simple thing, this law, this natural law, God's law, if you want to call it that, then we start to, because see, knowledge of natural law, knowledge of how it works, how it operates, the effects of natural law, it's very, very empowering, because what it does is it helps us take back our sovereignty. And that's what I was talking about earlier, because once we know this, then we recognize, okay, well, my belief in authority of man really isn't as strong as it used to be, if anything, because as we believe in man as God, then we're missing the point, or missing the point of life. And that's why I have taken the side of truth to live in harmony to natural law the best that I can. I still can, I know this is like a hard thing for people to, wrap their head around when they hear someone say the word slavery or I'm a slave. But I am a slave to a degree, and I'm still trying to break all the mind control and all the layers of conditioning that have been put into our minds for thousands of years. And to break free from that, one of the key principles, one of the key foundations to learn to work from is natural law, or God's law. And as we work from that, then we start to create a world of harmony. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm getting at with that.
Yeah. And I was trying to make some notes, but I don't have my tablet on me, but I'm going to have to make mental notes. So there's a few things that I wanted to touch on, and it's God's law or natural law. The thing is that if we say it's natural law, where it's supposed to be in nature, we have historical proof that it's not natural. It is derived from a source, and the source is what those of us of the faith, not religion, but the faith, say God's laws, which is why I appreciate you even mentioning it in that way. I feel there's a little bit of like reluctance to say that it's from God, because in the question, all right, which God? And then we can enter into a debate like, okay, well, which religious perspective is more true than the other? Which God is better than whatever? And then we can, That's a different rabbit hole altogether. But in what we're constructing here, and a lot of what you're saying touches upon, I guess you could say, the Christian God, and what a lot of the principles that you mentioned, that you just kind of, I think there were about 7 principles that you mentioned about just like agreeable law in a way that is Christian. But once you step outside that world of those that have been, say, exposed to Christianity, or have heard of Christianity, or have learned about the Judeo-Christian in nature, so the Judeo-Christian principles, that doesn't exist. That's why when you ask me the question, well, yes, me, if you found me in the street and you asked me the question that you asked, I would say, yes, of course, that's wrong. But that doesn't apply to the rest of the world. So in the rest of the world, you're going to come across nuanced answers, or cultural different cultures that don't view it as wrong. So if we look at it, say, as in terms of nature, then it's like, okay, nature, but they're being nurtured in a different way of that nature. And here in the Americas, before, there was, I guess you could say, Orthodox Christianity in a way, but it was more Catholicism than anything else. When they came here, there were tribes that were not exposed to, I guess, the Western way of thinking. And when you see people that have been, in a way, as people try to say, one in nature, cannibalism, tribalism, racism, even among themselves, child brides, and all that. So it's not entirely natural, but for someone like, if I were a Christian, to say, yes, in nature, what I would mean is that, as you also reference it, it being God's law. So I'm connecting it to that. So if we establish a direct correlation, that when we say, when we natural law as God's provided, I think one of the reasons why people don't like making that distinction, because some people already have like these defenses that go up. I don't want to hear anything about God. I don't want to talk about that. So then the question becomes, well, how do we get them to the truth? And this is a little bit of something that I touched on in the conversation during the Critical Introvert Show, because as someone that has studied and learned on things, I never went to seminary school, but even some seminary graduates asked me, how did you learn so much, I guess you could say, doctrine or teachings? It's like, I studied on my own. I say the grace of God, he illuminated to me, and I read it and I understood it. That's why I know that there is a limit. That's why even now I'm going to get all Christian here and start referencing things. Paul the Apostle says when he was a child, he ate as a child. So he like drank milk. But when he grew up, he started eating meat. And there are people that are not ready for the meat. Just like, you have to grow out your teeth. So let me feed you what you're able to digest right now. And that's in essence what I was saying on the show, where I said, look, if we're going to discuss truth, is where I am in the truth. I believe myself to be wholeheartedly in the truth. I say, I can't tell you all yet. There's a journey you need to take. And if you're open to things, and to me, Jesus said he is the way, the truth, and the life, then he is that path. He is the truth. It is the truth that sets you free. That's why I say, I'll meet you where I am. Because the journey should technically, if they earnestly are seeking the truth, that means we will meet right here. And the people that have gone on that journey, an earnest journey to get to the truth of things, found themselves where I am, not through my church, not through me speaking to them or whatever. They went on their own journey to inward, if you will, to find the truth, and they found God. And next thing I know, now I'm breaking bread with them. It's like, hey, you're a believer. That is something that's transpired. I believe in a way that's what you would like for humanity to get, but we're trying to, I guess, separate in a way what is religion, or people would view as religion, because the world, we let the world define what Christianity is. We let them define what God is, and people would then take moments in their lives and attribute blame to God when God had nothing to do with it. But when there's a glory to be had that should be to God, they'll never give thanks to him. But if it's bad, it has to be God's fault because he let it happen. It's like, well, last I checked, you didn't say thank God when something good happened. So it's an unfair trade-off, but that's the way the world works, because we have this chasm of separation that happens. And I'll ask you what you also mean about certain things in terms of like conditioning, mind control, and things like that, because I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that. But to me, it's also what I do know for a fact. Our human nature is animalistic in nature, and it's not for the better of our counterparts. For those of us that grow in a society that have values and principles to bestow on the next generation, yes, my child, don't do that. I'm a father of 3, 4th on the way, and I see what they do. Like, don't do that. You're gonna get hurt. They didn't listen. They got hurt. But had they had not had a father figure or any parental figure whatsoever, would they have learned those things? Would they have learned to walk on their own? Would it be that quick? Would they learn to even speak in the common language if they were never exposed to it? We don't know. That means there has to be some kind of guidance there, guidance principles. And
Right.
I know that there are other philosophies, there are other teachings out there that claim to be arbiters of truth, even though I'll strongly disagree with them. But what we can agree is this: it is beyond man. That's where we all agree, that it's beyond man. And the search is, well, then who is this strange supreme being that we feel is there? And in terms of my faith and belief, well, that would be Jehovah God, where others would attribute something else. But I think that's I feel that I guess for those of my listeners, I would be my moral clarity to give them, because the morality doesn't come from within. When we have generations of history of man versus man without God being at the center, and how things change, I guess you say domesticated, and that would then happen. But well, I'll let you respond to what I said.
Well, yeah. Okay. So let me just be a little bit more clear, because I definitely should have been. When I speak of God or the ineffable name, then I am speaking of the intelligent fabric of the whole universe. I'm talking about the creator of all creation. That's what I'm actually really getting at. And when I speak of God's law, I'm talking about the creator who put the laws in place for us to discover and live by. And the way that I understand it is the transgressions and the principles that I have laid out are a level. And a level, like if you think of the tool, the level is where we meet in nature, all of us. So, and that's what I understand. I understand that we meet on the level. And so to meet on the level means that, okay, regardless of how you understand the ineffable name or God, the creator, however you understand whatever religion or faith or non-religion, whatever it is, whatever belief system, we can meet on the level, because if we understand these principles, if we understand that, the transgressions, the things that cause harm in this world, then we can actually harmonize by just having the knowledge and acting upon it. So whether the religion says one thing or another, that's the other thing I wanted to say, is that we have to understand that just because a religion or a religion in another country believes in morality a different way, or truth a different way, that the question has to then be, does that change the truth? Does it change what the truth actually is? Because to arrive at the truth is to it's not that I don't believe that we'll ever get to the truth in this physical form. But what I do believe is that we can get as close to the truth as possible, because that's where we become more we gain more clarity on reality. And so, if, for instance, if you're my neighbor and I don't know anything about you, and you're we don't know each other. Well, I don't know what your beliefs are. You don't know what my beliefs are. But if we are aligned in morality, if we're aligned in the actual, understanding of the actual actions that we take into manifestation, then it doesn't matter what our beliefs and religion are, as long as we are being, respectful of each other's space and not taking from each other, and, not allowing our emotions and lower parts to run and dictate our mind. And that's why so many people are so lost, because they haven't taken the time in themselves to raise themselves to a higher degree of consciousness, to recognize that, I can actually, instead of physically being violent, I can actually have an intellectual conversation because I'm using my higher order thinking, and that's what the hemispheres of the brain actually can help us understand. Because as we study the hemispheres of the brain, we can activate, this is what makes us human, because this is part of the brain that we use reason from. And this is part of the brain where we can actually get to understanding these higher parts of knowledge, such as conscience. Most people don't understand that having a conscience means to it's having the knowledge of morality to take right action in the world, to not cause or support harm onto others. So it's about the free will choice to choose right action over wrong action, because you understand it, because but to be ignorant of that is to live in ignorance and keep not only causing harm but supporting harm, and not really even knowing that you're doing it. And so this is it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma because most people are stuck in their religious ways. They're not seeing that, hey, regardless of what your God is, or what your religion or faith is, if we don't meet on the level, then we're always going to bump heads. Because I'm sure you understand that if like, look all through history, if these people didn't join the faith of Christianity, they were killed. If you didn't join the faith of the atheists, people were slaughtered. Look at communist Russia and China. So it's like, yeah, right. In Islam, that's exactly it. So yeah, I didn't mean to leave that out, but you get the point that we can become brainwashed in these institutions, because that's what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about the institutions, not the actual. I'm not talking about actual teachings, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the institutionalized religions and how it gets people to believe a certain thing, and that's where politics comes in place. So it's a big dilemma, but at the same time, if we can agree on those transgressions, if we can agree on the principles, but that's the other thing. It doesn't matter whether we agree on them or not; they're still true in nature, because anybody in their right mind would never say, "Oh yeah, you can just totally beat me up and shoot me in the head, and I don't care." There might be some masochists out there who might be into that, but most people do not want to just allow someone to harm them. And that's because it's inherent in our nature. And when I say inherent, I'm talking about built into the fabric of nature, built into the fabric of our being, built into the fabric of the cosmos. Because, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, because I can't say I'm entirely familiar with it, but is it safe to say it's like pantheism?
What you mean?
The belief system as you're describing it, because it's like God is weaved into the universe, basically.
Right. Remind me of pantheism, but my
Well,
brain.
I'll pull up the definition right here. A doctrine which identifies God with the universe or regards the universe as a manifestation of God.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. It's a more pantheist. You're right. It's a more pantheistic idea. There's more to it than that. But the point is that, like I said, it's about understanding that there's nothing new under the sun, and therefore everything is, these principles that I'm talking about are discoverable, but they're discoverable through the individual. They're not, it's not granted by man. It's not something that man can say, like me telling you these things right now, me telling you, the action that causes harm, me telling you, self-defense principle and all this has nothing to do with me granting that as a right to anyone. I can't grant rights because I'm a man. Man doesn't grant rights. Only the creator, whatever the being is, the supreme being that created this whole universe, has laid into place for us to align to. That's what I'm really getting to.
And I could definitely go off on a lot on that in a good way, because it's I think we're along the same paths.
We are. I'm describing a lot of what you understand in a different way. I swear that's what it is. And so, yeah, because I'm trying to describe it the way that I have arrived at it, and you are describing it in the way that you understand it. So that's what causes like a little bit of friction.
And it's not friction, I would say.
Not bad friction, but just like friction in the mind, like, oh wow, okay, this, I don't know if I agree with this, but I could argue this. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. But it's also that it can be argued it's a little bit incomplete, but that's what the whole thing is about discovery. So that's the whole point.
Right.
But at the rate that we're going, we're not going to be able to touch on specific societal things, and that's okay. That's why I said I don't know where the conversation is going to ultimately head. We had some guidelines. We're not even going to reach that, so I'm going to say forget about that stuff, because we can apply it in general.
For sure.
The ideology. I'm not saying this is you, but these coexist bumper stickers, the believe bumper stickers, and all that. Mm-hmm. I absolutely reject all that.
Yeah.
Because there's only one of those religious symbols there that is not about me. And there's others there that want the death of the other, because it's built in, and in most cases, cultural.
Right.
And because of that, that's why it's not religion in a sense anymore in certain regions. If you're going to come across, for example, the Latin Americas, Latino Americas, most people assume you're going to run into someone that's predominantly Catholic, which you will. There are Protestants. And for those that are not entirely learned, either agnostic or ignorant about what these things mean, Catholics and Protestants don't exactly mix. Catholics persecuted the Protestants because the Protestants were quite literally thinking for themselves. So we have examples of institutional religious systems based on the same Bible, but one was glorifying man and the other one was trying to glorify God, because they found out that, hey, this is incomplete when people learned, as you're saying, because it was Martin Luther that rose to fame and said, hey, I'm going to hammer his 95 theses to the wall, because we are not teaching people right, because it was only up to the priest, or maybe the bishop, whatever it might be, at the town square, where they will have a chained up Bible that will be read in Latin to a people that don't read that. They probably couldn't read, or just ultimately all of them didn't understand Latin. So it all had to be interpreted by whoever was reading it. And who's to say they were wrong? It wasn't until someone on the inside said, this is wrong. So when the Bible was able to get into the hands of people, to how it should have been from the very beginning, that they realized, hey, either we've been lied to or something's off here. And that's where we cannot have the truth getting out. hence the religious persecution. And I don't like using the term religious, but for the general audience, I'm going to use the term religion because, as I said on the Critical Introvert Show, and I say personally, I don't practice a religion. I practice a way of life. So that in and of itself says it's along the lines of what exactly you're saying, because it's about people rising up to find the answers. Yes, because they do. They're people that are just happy being spoon-fed information. That's what you get nowadays. And if the TV says be angry about this issue, get up and fight, or go and do these things. And it's like, why are you here? Because I support the current thing. It's like, what is the current thing? It's like, the thing, like whatever. It's like, that's not. You're either a non-playable character, that's a use the video game term NPC, or someone that could think for themselves.
Right.
And when people can think for themselves, they either find enlightenment or they'll find the wrong thing. And we in Christendom, we are also warned that. And every religion will have its own thing. Every belief system will have its own thing where it says, don't think for yourself because it's dangerous. Only Christianity, as Protestant Christianity, some people lump in Christianity and Catholicism. They're not. Catholicism is not Christianity. A lot of it has melding in the United States, but they're not Christianity. Well, with this in the system, the only one that says, test me, is the Christian God. It says, you don't believe this? You can test it. Everyone else says you can't question it. That's different than most others, because it's like, hey, my way is true. Go ahead, put it against the test. Test it in the fire. That's the point. Whereas others don't hold up to scrutiny, the Christian God says, yes, I will. The problem is when you have people that are just spoon-fed information and regurgitate the same things, but cannot hold a candle to actually, do you understand what you're saying?
Right.
Because even in the name of the Christian God, people say stupid things. In the name of the Christian God, do stupid things, or are not following the commandments that have been laid out and are rude to their fellow human. Only in the Christian God has laid out a path for them to go out and spread the good news to the people. Go out and basically have a servant's heart. Love your enemies. No other religion says that. No learned biblical teaching or other religious scripture of sorts says that. It's either go kill your enemies and things like that. That's not what it says over here. But of course, people are saying, oh, well, the Old Testament is and that. Now we're talking about something a little more grand. But the point is that when it's all taken into account, people will realize they're not disconnected and they're speaking literally to our time. So when I say that what you're saying, you and I are jiving in that. And what I would say is I'll probably meet you where I am. Like what I meant to say that. Yeah. It's also to say, because you keep referring to the creator of the said universe, and that already is an admission. This is beyond an accident, and right. That is entirely an awakening period, and that's what's beautiful. Because we are told, if we just take, leave God out of this, let's take Christianity out of it, whatever. If we are to believe what we're taught in schools, that we descended from an ape, then I have to ask, what is the point to life if we're an accident? As someone that struggled finding that purpose for someone that was born to purpose, I'm like, well, I didn't ask to be alive. Okay, then so what can I do in my life? And I'm enjoying what I do now, and the value that I have as a father to see that new life, and I'm expecting my fourth. It's a thing of beauty, which is why the current dialogue happening as we're recording this, it really hits me right here, because I heard my child's heartbeat when they were smaller than a penny, and it's like, that's my child, and that is not an accident. And there are some men that cannot stand being in delivery rooms. I don't want to be there. I've been there for every delivery of my child, and someone said, aren't you? Wasn't that like the grossest thing you've seen? It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Yep. And some men figure, you never see a woman the same way again. It's like, I look at my wife, like, honey, you have a superpower I do not have. I can't do what you do. It's amazing. And in that is to know, like, life isn't an accident. So that's where things go. Like you and I had, it sounds like we had different upbringings, but we are on the same path to that moral truth, to find the creator of this universe, right? So we are on the same path. I found him. Let me rephrase. He found me because
Yeah.
he spoke to me.
Right.
And it's as weird as it might sound for people that are probably not thinking about this, like, oh yeah, you're schizophrenic, Andres.
So be
Test.
it.
So be it. I'd rather be this kind of schizophrenic than what's acceptable out
Right,
there in the
yeah.
world right now.
Yeah.
But in that road to discovery, I was almost swept away by another ideology. And I was here born and raised in the church, but I'm like, I was a bench warmer. I was being spoon-fed information because I have to be here. I was against my will. So when I was challenged for the first time, because I was not even thinking about it, I'm like, well, you know, you sound like you make a lot of sense, but I seen how you study. Like, I never studied anything. I just go and bench warm. You know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we get together at the end of the year? Let me go study why I'm supposed to believe what I believe, because I don't even know. And then we'll just compare notes. Man, that's how I understood God. I heard a calling, but I didn't understand him until then. And I want to punctuate my point, but I think I'm gonna leave it for a little later, because I could go off on a huge tangent on that too, and I don't want to risk it. So on that, staying to this is how I feel like, yes, you are on that journey, and I think a lot of people are also finding themselves in that way. And it's, in a way, even what's transpired in our country since November 2020, I would say, and a lot of stuff that has happened in, I guess you could say, the world or the secular sense, because people have seen for themselves what happens when the flow of information is controlled by big tech corporations. When you have the Facebooks of the world, the Twitters of the world, and the White House quite literally dictating or passing out the notes to mainstream media to tell the people what to say, what to think, what to be upset about, and here are the talking points. One of the things that frustrated me the most, as a not just as a Christian, but also in the political sphere, I have never ever heard it before. When the terrorist attacks on Easter a couple of years ago or more, by couple I do mean two, so it could be a little more, and it happened in Sri Lanka, where there were Christian churches targeted, hundreds of my fellow brothers and sisters of Christ killed and injured. Immediately, the reaction among the politicians here, a term I've never ever heard before: Easter worshipers. Like, what the heck is an Easter worshiper? Does it really hurt you to say that the ones that were targeted were Christian? You can't even bring yourself to say that term. None of them ever used it. Political figures, former presidents, they were all tweeting it. Our heart goes out to the Easter worshipers impacted by all this. Never in the history of English language have those two words ever been used in conjunction. But the media, like a hive mind, said it all like that. Like, what on earth? And that just led it to more credibility. It's like, what then happens when you realize that you've been lied to? Like, I don't, not to touch on it, but it's an example that at the time was told it was fake news and it was a Russian collusion thing. That the Hunter Biden laptop story, when the New York Post tweeted about it and Twitter immediately took it down, said, no, that's fake information. It's like, it's the fourth largest newspaper in the country reporting it. It's not some fringe right-wing blogger somewhere. And no, take it down. And then Twitter said, oh, well, you got the information through probably some illegal means. It's an investigative piece asking questions, but you will allow the New York Times to post about they illegally obtained copies of Donald Trump's tax returns. That was okay for Twitter, but not this one that could damage the campaign of the one that they wanted to win. So the damage was done by Twitter by censoring information that months later, when people were polled that voted for Biden, asked, did you know about the Biden laptops, the Hunter Biden laptops? No, I didn't. Had you known, would you have voted the same way you did? 15% said, no, I would have changed my vote. That's a huge number when all things take into account how close the election was. I got a lot of stuff to say about that, but it's a different story. But the point is that people were lied to. Okay, so what happened this year? The New York Times has come out to confirm, it's like, that story was accurate. So even when was considered a very progressive newspaper, admits to a story from a while ago, says, yeah, it was true. So, and more people are like, holy smokes, that 15% is way larger now, because now it's confirmed by the sources that they trust. It's like, okay, how much of what you consume as information is information? Like what you say is the brainwashing. And now we have this disinformation governance board that should scare the heck out of anybody. It's like, do you hear this? This is 1984. This is Orwellian stuff happening right before our eyes. It's the Ministry of Truth. We are being conditioned to be told you cannot think for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that is detrimental to society. So I don't discourage anybody from, like, me being a Christian. Is like, oh, what Nate is saying is it's not Christianity. Like, you're right. He's not. But he'll probably end up where I am anyway. So I will encourage him on his path, and I could share the shared experience that I have with him. I'd rather that instead of Nate saying it has to be this way, and I don't want you to say anything or you to say anything. I don't want you to think for yourself, like, well, that doesn't sound like open or free will at all. Say, no, he's on a road to discovery. And if it's an earnest discovery, I know for a fact, and as you're listening to me speak, that you're like, hey, if it is that, then we'll probably find each other here. But at least he's on that journey and self-aware. It's like, they don't want me to see things here. These guys are lying to me. That is a huge step in that journey to discovery, if you will. And I'll give you a moment to respond to or add in your own commentary, because I was monologuing for a bit.
Well, I've slightly been paying attention to a few of the things that you've brought up. And, I just want to say that to see how the media and these, big tech institutions are manipulating our information flow and what we're allowed to see and what we're allowed to see and what we're not allowed to see. It is so ridiculous that so many people actually support this. And it's beyond unacceptable that anybody would ever think that withholding information from others is a good thing. Because if we don't get information out, no matter what kind of information, I'm a proponent of all information being out in the open, because anyone who is controlling information has control over the mind. And they can do to you what they want to do to you, especially if they're a master psychologist or psychologist. God, yeah. My brain's a little. But yeah, it's like most of the dominators of this world are master psychologists, and they know how the control structure works. The media, the money system, the military, all the religious institutions, all the food, everything is compartmentalized. And the people at the top of the apex, the elitist and the, globalist, or, the few, if you want to call them that, they understand all of the information in all of these compartments. They understand how it works more because they have a power differential of knowledge over everyone else below them. So they systematically they send the information down that gets to us, the people down here. That's the way they look at us. Mm-hmm. And because it is a control system, it is a pyramid scheme. And so as that information comes down and it's, washed or filtered through and made a certain way, well, once it gets to us, by the time we try to figure one thing out, there's another thing coming up. And it's just to keep us like distracted mm-hmm. all the time instead of looking inwardly. And that is the whole problem with this fear-based media system. And it's one of the most mind-blowing things that you could ever awaken to see that it's so orchestrated in such a way by people who actually know how to manipulate certain events or create certain events and then manipulate those, that gets to us. And then we're like, oh my God, what do we do? Instead of just like, hey, maybe you just turn the TV off and, read some books and actually learn about yourself, because we're always too busy learning about this person's stuff and this person's stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's crazy, because I'm sure you agree with me. If we don't pay attention, I think it was, what's his name? The black actor who is in Avengers with the eye patch. What's his name?
Oh, Nick Fury.
What's his name?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. He said something like, you got to, you can't just not watch the, what's going on in the world or the news. Like it's good to watch the news, but it's also good to not watch the news. So it's like you're screwed if you do, screwed if you don't, kind of thing. And he really, I don't know. I'm mincing what he said, but the point is that we have to pay attention to what's going on in the world to a degree, or else we won't understand consciousness in the aggregate. We won't understand where people's minds are at and what people are thinking, because it's like waves, constant waves. And if we're not prepared for a certain wave, we're gonna be like, oh man, shit. Excuse me, sorry for my language, but like it's like, oh, we gotta we have to be somewhat prepared for that, and that's really what I'm getting at with like meeting on the level, because if we have what I call, or what many people call, spiritual armor, we can be prepared to be ready for those things that come at us, and we can deflect them and not allow them to dictate our lives and make us stay in fear and confused and chaotic all the time.
And I have I know that there are those in the audience that are Christian and are going to want me to say this. There's a lot of stuff that you have said that comes directly from the Christian Bible. That's like, yes, it's Christian. And exactly what you just said there, that is actually from my favorite passage in the Bible, in Ephesians 6, to put on the armor of God, to protect yourself against the flaming arrows of the wickedness and the devil that are being flung at us. Because that's what I mean. You reach that, the understanding that you're reaching is a place where I find myself in, and it feels like, well, he's heading in this direction, which is why I'm not saying, hey, accept Christ as your personal savior. Nope, I'm not doing any of that. It's like, that's a choice you make willingly. And if this is where you find the answer, there's a lot of stuff that you say is like, well, all of that sounds biblical to me. Then, hey, I'll find you here. But it really is.
I like that. I'll find you here. That's so cool, man. I love that.
Yeah, because it's what you're looking for too. And I'm like, yes, I totally want that for humanity as well. But I also know that not everyone will, because we have seen the behavior of some people. I think I want nothing to do with it. They want to keep doing what they're going to do and not get out of the comfort zone. But for everyone else, it's like, because I understand what it means to be coerced into a decision that I didn't want to make. And it's like, Ed, you don't appreciate it. And when I graduated from high school, I hated school. So I didn't go to college, at least not immediately. And my family, who I'm first generation American, my mom didn't know what high school even was, because she didn't get a chance to set foot in it. And my father couldn't even finish it, because they each through their own paths fled to the United States as political refugees because of what was transpiring with first there was the war with Honduras in El Salvador after the infamous qualifying soccer match for the World Cup, and it ended up a massacre of Salvadorians at the stadium.
Wow.
And then after that, it was the bloody civil war of communism setting afoot in El Salvador, and that's how my parents ended up over here. They didn't know each other, but they met in Los Angeles and they got married, and lo and behold, here I am. But with oh man, I was losing my train of thought there. Dude, I had a good train of thought.
You were talking about El Salvador having the bloody.
Well, yeah, they had a bloody civil war and made themselves their ways over here. But I think I was trying to correlate to I guess how how I came to be and be coerced into something that I didn't appreciate.
Right.
And I guess that was college. So they didn't get to ever even see a diploma. So they were, let down when I chose not to go to college. They were paying for it or whatever. It's like, I'm not going to go. I didn't want to be in school. So why would I voluntarily go back to school and have to pay for it? No. 1 year later, I did. But I did it out of my own accord. And when I graduated from Cal State Fullerton here in California, business degree, at my graduation speech, I did this whole thing out of a business. All right, God, I'm going to do this, but I'm not doing it for myself. That's also a Christian attitude. It's not about me. It's about someone else. So when I graduated at my graduation speech before people, I told them here, this diploma says Andres Alfonso Segovia, but to me, it'll always read Jose Alfonso y María Vergara Segovia. It's not for me. It's for them. I did it for them. And if I go for my master's, which that window has closed, that'll be for me. What became for me is my show. The Andres Segovia show is what I did for me. It's like, because that's what I wanted to do for schooling. And instead, it wasn't automotive engineering. It wasn't film, radio, or television. It turned out to be the business world that I so despise, but I'm so good at. Like, I know how to do it, but I don't have fun doing it. But a weight of relief has been the Andres Segovia show. But that is all to say. That's why I don't push or force anybody. In fact, as I was a circuit preacher, so it's not like you're just talking to like just some other Christian church member. No, I'm actively involved in ministry, going to different churches and being invited to speak, even small groups and things like that. I've been invited, but I haven't gone yet to a juvenile hall out of state. And like if I'm in the area, I would love to speak there. So this is the kind of person that you're conversing with, and yet only one person have I ever done what is called the altar call. Would you accept Christ as your personal savior? And that was to my own daughter. And that wasn't something that just came like because I'm going to ask her now. No, I saw some things that she was doing, a journey, self-discovery, things that she was saying on her own. And then she asked my wife. She said she wanted to get baptized. And then she told me. So then I'm like, I could have just ruled it out. I was like, you're young. What do you know? No, I tested her. I had a family dinner setting, and just off guard, I asked her. It's like, hey, Mija, you brought this up. What made you bring that up? And I just started questioning her line of thinking. And at the very end, we had quite a lengthy conversation. 9-year-old, man. She was 8 at the time, actually. She's 9 now. And after she made this, she was thinking at a way higher level. I told my wife, like, honey, she is smarter than her peers. She's very mature. She loves reading. She's buried in books. She enjoys books as much as TV, or even more so. She's really arts and crafty. So as I interviewed her at the very end, I told her, Mija, I am going to let everyone know that on this date, you're going to get baptized. But before I can do that, I need to ask you a question. That was the altar call. And we prayed and this and that. That's some people say it's a very religious thing. No, that's a very traditional thing that's done in Christendom. And in all my years, that's been the only one. And it was recent. That's why I don't impose or do anything with other people, because I know what it's like to be coerced. If it's really coming from here, then awesome. And if you ever come across questions, especially when it comes to Christendom itself, you got my contact information. I'm game to have these conversations with you, because they are enlightening, and I think they should be had. I don't think Christians should be shying away. It's like, he's not even talking directly about Christianity. Maybe he's pantheistic. It's like, well, at least I know he's talking about it, because I talk to other ones that claim to be Christian that are teaching false things. I rather what Nate is saying, instead of the one disguise that people like me but are lying to people.
Charlatans.
Yes. And the thing is, there's other denominations that claim to be Christian that teach an entirely different thing that is Christian. Yep. And those are the ones that I told you that almost converted me. Because like, well, I don't know why I'm supposed to believe what I believe. And now I'm like, oh man, that was the opposite of what I believe. But it sounds like it makes sense. But here's the real kicker. I don't want to mention, I'll tell you off the air what it is. But they are not allowed free thought. And everything flows from a singular source from people they have never seen of this governance board. And I'll tell you what that is afterward. But I think you're on the right path. And that's why I say, You're welcome to contact me to continue discussions. We've gone for an hour 14. We didn't even touch on societal issues, and that's okay because this is important, and I think it's people that are watching or listening can find us important. And I think just to make sure we have to wrap up here, you're going to be launching your own show with respects to this, I think, right?
Well, actually, I have already launched it. And so, and not too many people know about it because I really haven't. I wouldn't say that I'm the best at advertising myself, but maybe as I get more episodes, I'll try to, reach more people with the information. But if you are looking to, understand or look into the ways in which we can learn to think and learn how to learn and communicate better. That's something that I'm actually teaching right now in the beginning shows. I also get into the philosophy of science, and I get into consciousness and mind control, and I'm actually trying to help people understand the power of understanding symbolism. There's so much that I cover, but my show is called Outcasting, and the subtitle is Bits of Science Towards Freedom, because that's what I'm about. I'm trying to lay out little, bits of information that I've come to know and understand very deeply, and know that these little parts are digestible for a lot of people. And then I have my own podcast called Cubby Whole, which I do with my family, actually, Brandon and Douglas Martin. And they helped me with this podcast because during the whole scamdemic thing, I felt the need to start something to really get this information out. And so I was really, it was a rush effort, but it was more of like, okay, I know that these people think alike like me, so I'm going to have them on, and we're going to really like ramp this information up and really push it out there for people. So I got up to 53 episodes so far. And I talk about just about anything you can think of, especially with understanding, what's going on between our two ears. Yeah. And Outcasting is just me kind of going out by myself and, hopefully fishing people in to get them interested in these bigger concepts. And, I'm very transparent about that because I'm doing everything I can to reach people. But like you said, I'm not trying to force anything on anybody. I'm just putting out information the best that I can, and in hopes that it inspires people to want to better themselves and become, more aware of what's actually taking place in the world. And so, I'm also on Telegram, so under Outcasting with Nate Cap. And I just get on there and blog and post my weekly videos. And so that's where you can find me, find my information.
And for those listening to this episode, even watching it, you know the drill. You can find all the links to his social medias and podcast available at the show notes company's episode at www.thinkersegovia.com. Nate, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Andrew Segovia Show. I would love to have you on so we can dive deep into explaining what is happening with our society one of these days. But until then, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Andres. It's been a pleasure, man. It really is so awesome to be on a show with someone who might have, obviously you have different views than I do, but you're very adult, and I always appreciate an adult who actually wants to have a real conversation. So I really appreciate that.
I'm glad, because so do I. Treat others the way you want to be treated.
For sure. That's right. You got it.
Thanks a lot, Nate. See you on the next one, everyone.